11 teams are competing in this year's championships, including Tasmania, Queensland and the ACT, as well as metropolitan and country sides from Victoria, South Australia, New South Wales and Western Australia. Favourites to win are the giant Victorian metropolitan team. Another side expected to do well is New South Wales Country, which is dominated by Newcastle and Wollongong players. 5 locals are in the country team, including Chad Stevenson of Wallsend High, Neil Harvey from Francis Greenway, James Rintoul of Lambton, Simon John Kennedy of St Paul's and Brad Winterbine from Toronto High. New South Wales Country's first game will be against Victoria Country at 7:15 tonight. In results so far today, South Australia Metropolitan thrashed Western Australia Country 122-41, and in this game, Western Australia Metropolitan got up in the last seconds to down Queensland 77-74. In tomorrow's second day of competition, New South Wales Country play in the first match at 9 a.m. against the ACT, and in the last game against Western Australia Metropolitan at 9 p.m.
All over the Hunter Valley, vote counting continued today after the weekend's local council elections. In Lake Macquarie, it's definite that Mayor Jeff Pasterfield was pipped at the post by independent challenger Ivan Welsh through preferences. Pasterfield actually polled more of the primary votes than Welsh. He polled 37,564 to Welsh's 32,745. However, most of the preferences from a third candidate, Ron Fennell, went to Welsh. The end result was Pasterfield 39,367 to Welsh's 44,232. Overall in Lake Macquarie there has been a strong swing against the ALP. Independents have secured at least 8 of the 16 seats on the council, with 3 still to be decided. According to former Mayor Jeff Pasterfield, there were a number of key issues that led to the ALP's demise in Lake Macquarie.
I think there was a couple of issues around at the time that people were wanting to express, I think, to the ALP that they were dissatisfied with them. I think the ID card was the main one. And also, of course, we had the announcement about Morisset Hospital, which didn't do us any good at all.
In Cessnock, it was a completely different story. The ALP's candidate, Marie Callaghan, is still recovering from the shock of taking 63% of the primary votes to oust Gordon Williams as mayor.
I think the people are looking for progress. There's been very little development in this area for the last 4 years, and the people have indicated they want to get the city moving.
As counting continued for the rest of the council positions, it became clear that the ALP have won 8, probably 9 of the seats. It now has control of the council.
At present, commercial trawling off the coast north of Sydney is confined to the relatively shallow waters of the continental shelf. Australia's 200 nautical miles of territorial waters, restricted to foreign vessels, lies relatively untouched except for deep-sea line fishing. The federal government would like to see that change and has initiated a special program to research its potential. Special licences will be granted to those who wish to tackle the area, the only proviso being that they must trawl at depths in excess of 900 metres and carry a government observer. Peter Morris, now Minister for Resources, who announced the development plan, said this way the fishermen get what they want and the government is able to cheaply assess the area's potential.
It offers an excellent opportunity to expand our export income, and what we are doing, in simple terms, is to throw open an area for experimental trawl fishing by interested parties for a period of 12 months from an area about 50 kilometres from our coastline out to about 200 nautical miles. And if there are fish supplies there, as we believe, then we can organise on a developmental basis the fishing. That can bring added export income to an industry that's already producing almost $600 million a year for Australia.
As a major port in the area affected by the announcement, Mr Morris says Newcastle can only benefit from the growth of the industry.
Not only will it bring export incomes, we've got firms here already in that trade. It will bring the opportunity for servicing vessels that can be involved in that trade, and it will bring the opportunity for people to crew the vessels and to process the catches of those vessels. So it is another opportunity for this region if we can get our coordination right.
Hello, I'm Jane Button. Tonight I'll be reporting on a visit to the Hunter by Employment and Youth Affairs Minister Clyde Holding. Mr Holding was in the Hunter to ensure that the government's $8 million assistance package for retrenched miners is spent properly.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Good afternoon, I'm Helen Hughes. In tonight's news, a report on a booming Hunter Valley cottage industry. These are Angora goats, and their owner believes he's just beginning to exploit a multi-million-dollar industry.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
The tendency to become allergic appears to be hereditary, according to Swedish Professor of Paediatrics Bengt Bjorkston. He says babies at risk often come from families with a history of allergies. He says research shows there are several abnormalities found in allergy-prone babies, and in some cases these can be pinpointed.
The most simple one is to determine IgE antibody levels in the cord blood. These IgE antibodies are the antibodies associated with allergic disease in any age, and elevated levels in a healthy baby is indicative of that this baby is a risk baby for later disease.
He says the risk of babies developing allergies is substantially increased when they're exposed to tobacco smoke, and pets in the house should also be avoided. He encourages breastfeeding, but says nursing mothers must be careful with their diet.
It is known that mothers drinking excessive amounts of milk or eating lots of eggs can actually provide the baby with antigens, these foreign foods, in the breast milk. And by lowering the amount of these foods in the maternal diet, we hope to reduce the number of sensitized babies.
Police found the murdered body of 45-year-old Frederick George Schmidt on Tuesday in his Newcastle East End flat located in the old Carlton Hotel. After the padlock door was opened, police found Schmidt badly wounded and the room splattered with blood. Yesterday, fingerprint experts confirmed his identity and a post-mortem revealed the cause of death. Schmidt was already known to police with a criminal history. Investigations will continue today as police try to piece together the motive behind the slaying, and they're keen to locate Schmidt's girlfriend to help in the inquiry.
We are endeavouring to locate a known female who was an associate of his, and we hope that she'll be able to perhaps piece it together a little bit better for us.
The government hopes the new scheme will crack down on traffic offenders who are escaping infringements. Last year, nearly 3,500 motorists chose to go to jail rather than pay traffic or parking fines. But the new system, which will be introduced next January, aims at reducing the prison population, as well as the amount of police clerical work. Under the scheme, licences will be cancelled for non-payment of fines and the option of going to jail will be removed. Once a licence is cancelled, all avenues of appeal will be closed and offenders will have to reapply for their new licence. If the vehicle is owned by a company or the offenders are driving unlicensed, the vehicle registration will be cancelled. The scheme will include all motoring offences where fines are imposed and is expected to cost around $600,000 in its first year of operation. This is Joseph. He's the one with the beard and the only male in the group of 32 potential babysitters taking part in the childcare course. The 2-week program, designed by the Red Cross, covers all aspects of the caregiver's role under the tuition of qualified professionals such as occupational health nurse Sister Helen Wilson. Today's subject was illness and immunisation and ranged from the symptoms of measles to the problems of nappy rash. And it's not all easy work. Each participant is expected to complete assignments and will be assessed at the end of the program before qualifying for a certificate of elementary childcare. With the waiting list nearly full for the Christmas holidays, Red Cross says it's providing an important service for the region's youth.
We have a waiting list already now for the Christmas holidays, and because we see that there is a need in the area, we're certainly going to provide this need to the young people, because that actually is the role of Red Cross, to fill in the gaps, not to duplicate a service, but to look to where there is a need and fill that need in the community.
It's been 15 years since the Vietnam War ended, but it was only this year that Newcastle built a memorial for the soldiers who fought in Australia's longest war. Vietnam veterans Steve Finney and Bob Moore will be among the 20,000 returned soldiers expected to march in tomorrow's Welcome Home parade through Sydney. Conscripted at the age of 21, both men served under different units. Steve, now 39, was a builder in the 17th Construction Squadron, repairing hospitals, roads and villages of the South Vietnamese, while 40-year-old Bob served in the Infantry Battalion, carrying out search and destroy operations. Of the 50,000 soldiers who fought under the Australian Task Force between 1962 and 72, 496 died and nearly 2,400 were wounded. Now that the war has ended, the men say the memories will never be forgotten, and not all of them are bad.
Got a lot of fond memories, got a lot of fine friends. The lifetime friends, we're like a family, and a hell of a lot of them will be there tomorrow, and we'll be thinking about the ones that aren't.
I don't disagree that it did affect a lot of people that were over there. But I've been involved in my time since I returned from Vietnam with a lot of veterans, and the percentage of those veterans that I've noted to have any sort of problems is minimal.
The Royal Australian Air Force has flown thousands of veterans from across Australia to Sydney for the Mammoth reunion. Although their arrival home from the war went unnoticed and unappreciated by the government and fellow countrymen, the veterans hope that will change after tomorrow's parade.
In Sydney tomorrow is going to be more than just welcome home and reunions. There's a dawn service to be held at 4 o'clock in the morning, which is going to remember all those Vietnam veterans that didn't come back, that paid the supreme sacrifice. And of course I'm going to be very, very proud to be able to march through Sydney with medals ablaze, and I'm also very happy to know that I'm going to run into a lot of friends that I haven't seen for a long time.
Someone's packing up, someone's really leaving. Someone's not quite sad, only disbelieving. Someone's marching back once more.
The new taxation office will be located on the corner of Derby and King Streets, right in the heart of the central business district. It will be part of the Newcastle City Council's first stage of the $70 million commercial development. When completed, the complex will allow the Newcastle Taxation Office to consolidate its operations under one roof. The office will employ a staff of 950, an increase of 300 workers, by the anticipated occupation date of mid-1989. But the council has placed strict car parking requirements on the development, and as yet, Tavalon has failed to meet those demands. That means council has not issued a building permit to allow work to begin. But there is a loophole. Council may decide to accept the developer's bank guarantee, which would cover full or additional costs for the car park facility eventually chosen. While declining to be interviewed on the matter today, Town Clerk Barry Lewis said negotiations were still continuing and was confident the matter would be resolved within the 3-week deadline. Meanwhile, an order under the Heritage Act preserving the Frederick Ash building in Burwood Street has been lifted. The Heritage Council has given the go-ahead for the partial demolition of the building, making way for stage 2 of the $70 million development, an international hotel. Under the Newcastle City Council's proposal, the facade of the 1905 warehouse will remain intact.
Councils met and formed a task force to look at boosting employment prospects for retrenched miners. Chairman of
More than 150 surfers from 14 clubs from around New South Wales and Queensland are competing over the 3 days, proving you don't have to be very young to be very good. And with excellent conditions today, there was plenty to catch the judge's eye. The competition continues tomorrow, with the finals on Monday, along with other special activities, including a $3,000 beach treasure hunt. To boards a little shorter and much different. Skateboarders gathered at Newcastle South Beach today to show off their talents in the annual Matàra Skate Out. The competition, held over 3 days, is organised by the Newcastle and Lake Macquarie Skateboard Association. And with points awarded for the best jumps and manoeuvres, every trick in the skateboarding manual was pulled out to impress the judges, with some competitors proving you can do just about anything on a skateboard, even if you're a dog. And a group of cyclists rode into Newcastle today on a special road trip from Cairns to Canberra, the aim to raise money for the Bible Society. About 45 cyclists were joined by some local riders for the run down from Karua this morning to Nobby's Beach. The $200,000 the group hopes to raise will go towards buying Bibles and aiding literacy programs for Burma and Kenya.
The Mariner Explorer submarine is a first of its kind. Sydney-based builder Richard Wright has invested 6 years and $100,000 in developing and refining the one-man sub. Controls have been kept simple, with a single control stick operating both the diving planes and turning the propeller to give direction. Mr Wright says he can see a variety of uses for the vessel.
Basically a leisure machine cruising along the reef, because the machine does double a diver's breathing time. An experienced diver gets twice as much time down there. Travels around about 3 knots, so you can cover a lot more area. We do have a mining company in Singapore interested to use one for searching for relics. So there are numerous applications for the Explorer.
The Explorer is designed to be mastered in 1 hour, but as this pilot found out, curious onlookers don't make it any easier. As in larger submarines, buoyancy tanks in the bow and the stern determine the sub's depth in water. The tanks are filled with water to dive and then refilled with air from the diver's own tanks when he wishes to surface. Power to drive the 1.7 horsepower engine comes from a 12-volt rechargeable battery, which will give up to 4 hours of operation. This is the work of young Zheng Qing, a modern Chinese painter from Shanghai. He is just one of many Chinese artists whose work is currently on display in Newcastle. Utilising his traditional training as a base, his works have a dynamic new approach. Some of his paintings show the effect that a recent trip to Australia had on his work. This one shows the influence of Aboriginal art, while this work is inspired by a recent trip to the Kakadu National Park. The exhibition also features more traditional paintings, such as those by Chu Shou Chun, and a wide variety of woodblock paintings. Some of the most colourful paintings are the abstract linear works of the Jinshan County peasants. These people have a long history of depicting features of their day-to-day activities through traditional crafts, but have in recent years begun painting. Using bold colours and simple images, the Jinshan peasant artists depict in a stylised way the world around them. These miniature Xersha teapots are quite remarkable. Like all Xersha earthenware, they are made in one province from a special clay which is unique to the area.
Although the day began with gusty winds and looming black clouds, the show at Fort Scratchley went on. This week, the Horse's Mouth Street Theatre Company will perform an array of tales for both young and old. The group of 18 performers was drawn together under the Newcastle Community Arts Centre, especially for Matàra 87. The troupe combined puppetry, mask performance, pageantry and music to take their audience on a fairy tale adventure. And as part of the show, the onlookers moved to different places of the fort for each story. Meanwhile, indoors, the Newcastle Creative Embroidery Group is once again displaying some finer points of needlework. The annual Matàra exhibition at City Hall features a variety of articles, all painstakingly stitched to perfection. The different techniques of the craft can be seen in the embroidered wall hangings, clothing and bags. And as the day rolled by, so too did the clouds. By lunchtime, the sun was shining on hundreds of onlookers at Civic Park for the Matàra Fair. There were stalls and rides for the children, and the popular rock group The Kids on centre stage entertained the crowd. The highlight of the day for most youngsters was the arrival of their furry idol, Big Dog. All this week, Matàra celebrations will continue throughout Newcastle, winding up with the family picnic in Civic Park planned for next Sunday.
The Christchurch Cathedral Choir, conducted by Philip Matthias, was one of almost a dozen high-class acts to regale the audience at the festival concert. The choir, accompanied by string artists from the Newcastle Conservatorium of Music, sang two pieces, which in the dignified setting of the main hall kept the listeners spellbound. Hundreds of performers played or sang in the event, which organisers say was purely for the pleasure of classical music lovers. They say the cream of local talent was on display for this first of showcase concerts. Whether or not it becomes an annual part of Matàra, however, organisers say depends largely on the public response to last night's concert. Last night's meeting was brief, lasting barely an hour, being principally for the election of Deputy Mayor and Aldermen to serve on the various council committees. Independent Alderman Gordon Hughes was elected for the one-year term as Deputy Mayor, replacing Alderman Jenkins. As the meeting progressed, it became clear that the independent aldermen had formed a caucus, as voting was repeatedly split 10-6 and their nominations selected. The important positions on Shortland County Council all went to independents, with Alderman Hughes, Hanley, Tussis and Walker to represent Lake Macquarie on the board. Likewise, while not totally made up of independents, they carry the majority on the important Resource and Planning Committee, the Corporate Planning Committee and the Budget Committee. The new Mayor of Lake Macquarie, Ivan Welsh, acknowledged that the block voting was done deliberately, but said it won't be usual. Alderman Welsh has also retreated from his strong opposition to the building of the Spears Point Multicultural Centre. He says it's clear residents of Lake Macquarie do not want their taxes used on the centre, but said the council will be looking at other possible forms of finance.